You're listening to the Leading the Guard podcast here, and I am Sergeant First Class David Donaldson. And today's episode, I am bringing in a special guest. You're going to hear from him again down the line as well. The first time I want to bring him on is because this is one of my best friends in the Army. If not, he is my best friend when it comes to the Army. I spent many a days talking leadership philosophy with him, and I'd be remiss if I didn't bring him on to tell his story and to tell you some leadership advice that maybe applies to him. He's my good friend from Saravia. He's the guy that convinced me to be in combat arms, man. He said, hey, look, you're going to want to come and be with these guys that are just doing some of the most deranged stuff ever, and you're going to have a blast. And you know what? I'll even give him this one. He was right. All right, I am talking with my good friend, Sergeant First Class Saravia. Hey, Sergeant Saravia, go ahead and give them... It's weird, we're peers, and I call you Sergeant Saravia still, man. I want to just tell everybody who you are.
Sergeant First Class from Saravia. I've been in the Florida Army National Guard for, I just hit 20 years in March, so time is flying by. A lot of different MOSs. Initially came into the Army National Guard as a mechanic, and I know Dave definitely understands that, coming from different MOSs, jumping into field artillery, weapons repair positions, logistics, administration, and now I think the rest of my career might remain as a recruiter, if I'm not mistaken. We'll see. But definitely the military is my life. It's taken up a lot. As I get to the end of the career, I'm kind of considering what, life has for me, but this military and the leadership side of it is definitely something that I love.
Yeah, well, you talk about changing MOSs so much. I mean, you're the one that actually convinced me that maybe support roles are not for me, but maybe combat arms. I still remember that conversation. I had met you. We were getting ready to go to our 2016 deployment, and you're like, hey, aren't you over with Fox Company? I was like, yeah. He goes, oh, you're going to love it being with the infantry. He's like, combat arms is another deal. And sure enough, man, I got back and I was like, you know what? I need to get back to the combat arms. Changing MOSs, man. Do you think that's actually a lot more people are trying to do that throughout the Army? Do you think that's actually a good thing, or should we actually be trying to keep people kind of locked into a certain MOS because the branches are starting to lose out?
Okay, so there's two competing requirements here. There's a requirement of making sure we're maintaining the MOSs and the manning, right? Like the unit's ability to accomplish a mission. So that's the bigger Army perspective, is making sure that we have usable units. And then when I think about an individual soldier, I would not see why gaining experience within a different aspect of the Army wouldn't benefit you and your career. So for me, if it's possible, then definitely looking into becoming a different MOS, it could revitalize your career. I was at the 10-year mark, and I had been support my entire career. So 91 Bravo, wheeled vehicle mechanic, and 91 Fox, small arms repair and artillery repair. I enjoyed those MOSs. They were rewarding. But when I was given the opportunity to become field artillery, I became part of a team. I became part of a group that had a very focused mission, and that was getting rounds downrange to support our friendly forces. And when I realized that is all that we focus on, and the goal is to make sure that it happens and you're effective and efficient with it, and just being out there in a team environment, working alongside other people that have the same task and the same goal, it changed how I looked at the Army, and it changed how my career felt. I felt revitalized in that. And that's kind of where I really just enjoyed every bit of being out there alongside other people.
I tell you, it was a feeling unlike any other. And this isn't like a promo to go out and join the infantry, artillery, or any combat arms, but it was that team aspect. It was just a whole different culture. But it was honestly a breath of fresh air, because I was just burnt out in the support roles. And now I've actually, when I was talking with soldiers of mine back in Indiana, some of them were actually trying to leave the artillery and actually go to do more support roles. One of them wanted to go out and be a welder, or an aircraft mechanic was also another one. And I feel like that's actually good for retention. And as a recruiter, that's kind of like your big thing too, is not only making sure that we get them in, but also that we keep them. Am I too far off on that one, or am I right on the nose?
You're right on the money. So in my roles that I've played as retention NCO for some of the units, I do what's called an exit interview. So this is a sit-down conversation with soldiers that have decided to exit the force, right? And so I'm the last-ditch effort, right, that gets to sit with them and speak to them and find out what is it about their decision to leave. Why are they leaving? And if possible, is there anything that we can do to retain them? One of the things that I found is we are very much dead set on not moving soldiers and allowing them to shift when their career shifts, when their personal life shifts. I've found more often than not, the actual solution to retain a soldier is changing their job, changing their unit, changing the focus of what their service looks like. Some people come in at 18 years old and they serve in the infantry for their entire first contract, 6 years. And then they decide, hey, my life has changed a bit. My focus has changed a bit. And I think that through that retention piece, we can give them the opportunity to pick up a different job or in a different unit. And it'll give them an opportunity to serve in a different aspect that works well with their life, that works well with what they're doing. So let's say I have an infantryman who joins at 18, serves until 24. He's getting to the end of his contract, and he decides, you know what? Infantry was awesome. I met some great people. I was a part of a team. And now I would like to get into something. Maybe I want to start my own business. I want to be an electrician. If there's an opportunity to put this individual into an electrician position and allow him to get those civilian certifications that can support him, then that's something that we should definitely look into doing, especially if it can fill a position that we need.
Okay. When it comes to recruiting, I got a question for you, because there's probably going to be some people that may listen to this and they're not sure what they want to do in the Army, because there's so many different jobs. I mean, I know it's going to be state dependent. I got up to Minnesota, found out that they have tanks up here, and when I wanted to join the Army, Florida doesn't have tanks. They don't do too well in the sand. But how do you help these recruits actually find a job? What is your advice for these guys coming in that want to be recruited to find a job in the military that it kind of applies to them?
Okay, so there's two different aspects of this. If you're going to go active duty, then the job is going to be the most important thing, right? Deciding what position is available for you and then getting the scores to support it on the ASVAB. So I can want you to have a job, you can want you to have a job, but if we don't have the ASVAB score to support those jobs, you're going to limit what I'm eligible for, right? The other thing we have to keep in mind is what is available. So the Army, like I said, the big picture focus here is the Army is trying to fill positions that are critical to the mission. And you, as an individual, you have to self-advocate to make sure that you're getting what you want out of your service. So sometimes that means being a little bit patient. And especially as a recruiter, I can tell you I've seen recruiters pressure people to get into a position just to get them forward, but you have to self-advocate throughout this process. I try to advocate on behalf of the applicant to make sure that they're getting what they need out of the process, especially if they're not certain. So we go through that. In the National Guard, though, this is the other side of it. This is a 1 week in a month job. I not only want to put you in a position that you want to be in or a role you want to be in, but I also want to make sure that it's going to work with what your civilian plans are. And what I mean by that is, where are you going to go to school? Does the unit that I'm placing you in make sense for you? I'm always trying to create triangles. A triangle between where you live, what unit you're in, and where you're going to go to school. If we can make a triangle as small as possible, then that gives you the greatest opportunity for success. So a good recruiter is going to be thinking about the whole person, not just the enlistment, but how this enlistment is going to work for this individual. That way you can look back at me and say, I had a great recruiter who was concerned about my success. And what that's going to do for any recruiter out there, it's going to bring people back. It's going to bring them with their friends. Okay. They're going to hear about it. Their parents are going to hear about it, and they're going to bring people to you. That's how you are successful in recruiting, is to make sure you're taking care of the individuals, not just the number.
It's good to hear that. We all hear the horror stories of recruiters. I've told my fair share to people. Quick story for me is my neighbor back in Indiana, his son just joined the Navy, and they were promising him the world. And I had to get on a call. Me as an E7 calling some E6 recruiter in the Navy to let him know, hey, you better stop lying to him before I show up, and it's not going to be a pretty story. It's sad, but at least I know you as a good person, and we've been through a lot together, so I know that the advice you give is wholeheartedly on the money. Actually, you've given me some of the best career advice out there on a personal level too, man. But I got to ask you, what is some leadership advice you wish you had way earlier in your career, maybe starting as like E4 to E5, or even now as a E7, dude?
The best advice that I got was actually from a good friend of mine, and it was probably the toughest advice that I can hear. What he said to me, and these words cut deep, so I'm going to share them with you, and this is being vulnerable. Nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. What that means is you can be the most intelligent individual. You can be the best at the job. You can be the person that has all the right answers. But if nobody's willing to listen because your attitude is not correct, or the way that you deliver the message is not correct, then you will not be a leader. You may be in charge, but you will not be a leader. A leader can only lead a team that's willing to follow. So it's about character. It's about attitude. It's about looking at each individual within your team and finding out who they are, how they tick, what makes them go, and then truly and genuinely caring about the outcome of their lives and placing that ahead of your own to make sure that you can, one, accomplish the mission, and two, take care of your troops.
Man, that's kind of deep. I started thinking back to E5 Sergeant Donaldson, man, and I wish I had known that advice then, man. I'm going to tell you, man, I've come a long way. I convinced a bunch of dudes that I terrorized for a week. My AT recently was with the cadets, the brand news, not even a full year in college yet. They had to come out and do AT with us, and I spent the whole week just bringing them up to standard, showing them, hey, this is what the Army looks like, this is what right is. And then at the end of it, man, everybody's asking me, hey, so are you going to be at Fall FTX with us? I was like, what is this, Stockholm Syndrome? What's going on here?
Yep. They love a good leader.
I try, man. I try to emulate you and the others that help bring me up, dude. It's kind of crazy to think back. Hey, any last minute advice you want to give to any of the guys that may be listening to this down the line that are coming in to talk to a recruiter outside of what you've already given? There's got to be another little nugget of wisdom that they need to know, something that maybe can set them up for success down the line.
If you're coming in to talk to a recruiter, I think probably some of the best advice is be upfront. Get what you want out on the table as quickly as possible, and then observe the recruiter. Are they listening to you? Are they paying attention to what you're saying? Because just because you have one recruiter sitting in front of you doesn't mean that that's your recruiter. You need to make sure that you have a good one, that he genuinely cares about what you're saying, that you want out of the military, or that you want out of your service, or that you want out of the process of enlisting. If you don't see that happening, you may need to find another recruiter.
I appreciate that, man. I don't really want to say goodbye. I know you got to go, but I got to get going too, man. It's just so good to hear from you. Like I told the intro to this podcast, I tell everybody, you've been my best friend in the Army. I remember many a day sitting in your office after drill. It'd be 4 or 5 hours. Even Sergeant Alma's gone home, and me and you are still sitting in the armory, just shooting the shit and having some of the best conversations I think I've ever had, man. And I can't believe I finally get to call you a peer again in the weirdest of ways. But it's always good hearing from you, man.
Yeah, same here, man. Congratulations. You've done the work necessary to get to the rank that you're at now. So definitely proud to call you a peer. I think that you took some of what I said right in the beginning, and you just applied it. Like you really just applied it. You cared enough to improve yourself, improve who you are, go through the tough job of doing a self-evaluation and say, hey, this is where I'm falling short and this is where I can do better. And I think you're probably one of the best examples of somebody who's done that. So, you give a lot of credit to me, but it's a lot of your effort. It's a lot of your work. You had to do all of that. So being able to sit here on the other side of the phone and hear my friend be so successful, not just in radio, but in your military career, and, care enough to be able to put this in a podcast format so that other people can benefit from it, I think that's amazing. So thank you for having me on.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. That's what a good leader does. He changes the way you see yourself and how he sees you as well, man. I can't say thank you enough to Sergeant First Class Saravia. You'll hear from him again as we explore broader topics, especially if you are thinking about becoming a cadet. Maybe you want to enlist that way and become an officer. There's no better guy that I know that could probably give you some great advice than a guy who teaches right now at one of the colleges down in Florida. Till next time, if you want to hit me up and you have something you want to talk about, maybe you're a leader that's got something to say, I want to hear from you. You can email me at david.donaldsoniv@gmail.com, and I'll catch you then. Have a good one.